You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, trying. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Monday in the Quad Cities. Monday, November 3rd. We're officially in November. October flew by. I think all the months when you get my age fly by. But November is officially here. Hopefully everyone had a great Halloween weekend. Mine was awesome. Trick-or-treating with the kids was fun. Trip to Detroit was great, except for the result. We'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. And in fact, like at one point I was like, you know what? I'm going to punt on a show today. I'm coming back. We got back at midnight last night. We left right after the game got done because kids have stuff today and everything else. So we made it back at midnight, but there's so much to talk about. Plus I didn't want people thinking that I was dodging anything since my beloved Lions lost. Here's the cool thing though. Their giveaway was an Amon-Ra St. Brown bobblehead, and it's the upside down victory celebration, touchdown celebration. From Lambeau Field. So the head doesn't bobble, the feet do. I think that's awesome. So that might be the only shining thing. So we'll talk more about the Lions, the Bears playing well. They win again. They're 5-3. The Lions and Bears have the same record. We're going to get to all that kind of stuff coming up in just a little bit. But hopefully you had a great Halloween weekend, if you will. And it's amazing how Christmas is all of a sudden everywhere. I think they literally pulled all the Halloween stuff and put Christmas stuff up as fast as possible. Speaking of which, if you know me, you know I love the Little Debbie Christmas trees. They're officially out there. So if anybody wants to send boxes, send them my way. I love those things. So anyways, if you're watching us live on YouTube, we appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. If you have subscribed, thank you. If you haven't, shame on you. Do so ASAP. Check the show out every day, 10 a.m. right here in the Quad Cities. We're also live on X as well. X has been very, very good to us. So if you're watching us on X, thank you. Give us feedback. If you're on YouTube, the chat is up and going, much more active of late, which is great. So please, questions for guests, all that kind of stuff. Myself, make fun of me, whatever you want to do, hop on and check it out as well. We're also available on all the podcasting platforms as well. So Spotify, Apple, Podbean, iHeart, any place you get your podcasts, check out Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. It should be there. And then also into month number 2, more than that, I did the math the other day. It's week 7 in central Iowa at 7 p.m. in the evenings on WHO. So on the streaming app for WHO. So we appreciate that. We're loving that. Thank you for the feedback. And don't forget the Iowa women open up tonight. So we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Speaking of today's show, the 21st ranked Iowa women open tonight at Carver Hawkeye Arena against Southern at 6:30. In a matter of moments, my good friend and the Hawkeye Report's own Kyle Huesmann will be here to talk about that game, but also his fearless forecast on what he sees from this Iowa women's basketball team. Also, there was a preseason game last week. We'll get his thoughts on how people looked on that as well. So that's coming up in just a little bit. Also, college basketball wise, the Illinois men open tonight and the Iowa State men open up for real tonight as well. So, and if you're a Quad City and a Brock Harding fan like I am, the former Maroon will open with TCU tonight as well. Also coming up after that, here in hour number 1, Scott Dochterman from The Athletic will join me to talk, about everything. College football is crazy. We had Nebraska playing Iowa not playing Iowa literally on the field, but pretending to be Iowa. We got Iowa, Oregon coming up this weekend. I want to talk to him about the Illini getting their 6th victory of the season. So Scott Dochterman will be here later on in hour number 1 as well. In hour number 2, we're going to talk about the Bears. We're going to talk about Game 7 of the World Series. We're going to talk about the Lions and high school football. Geneseo's huge victory. Hats off to Geneseo for their amazing win against Rochelle on Friday, scoring a touchdown late, going for 2 to take the lead, not getting it, then getting the onside kick, and then getting the field goal as time expired to win. We'll talk about that. John Marx will join me on Monday. On Monday, it is a Marxy Monday, so we will talk everything when it comes to the world of sports. Congratulations to all the high school football teams that won on both sides of the river. Over in Iowa, just one local team remaining in our WQAD old TV viewing area that I kind of look at when it comes to high schools, and it's Wilton will play in the quarterfinals coming up this week. So we'll probably have to track down Coach Hetzler coming up sometime this week as well. So, and also in Illinois, a lot of big victories. We'll talk about the Illinois side of the river coming up later in the show, and then also throughout the week right here on OTA. One quick bit of housekeeping. Most likely no show tomorrow. I got some radio responsibility to do up in Iowa City. So it gives me a good chance to rerun our Iowa men's basketball preview show from Media Day. It was a ton of fun, a blast. They open tomorrow night, so gives you guys a chance to check that out again. Gives me a chance to get some other things done. So most likely no show tomorrow. When it comes to a new show, we'll have that show for you coming up, and then we're going to jam a lot into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because there's so much to get to. But that's a good thing. It's easy to fill shows this time of year. And when it comes to filling shows, you want to fill shows up with good stuff. And Iowa women's basketball has been good stuff for a long time. And some big numbers come when we talk about the Iowa women. I think the Iowa women are popular. I think Kyle Huesmann is what the ratings he's a ratings getter. So Kyle Huesmann joining me right now on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. First and foremost, thanks for doing this, buddy. Happy Monday.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It is a good Monday with the opening of not only men's basketball but women's basketball. I was up this morning watching the Field of 68. They got their opening day marathon. I was watching Winthrop and Queens, which tipped off at 7 a.m. So I've already got my basketball fixed in for this morning.
It's amazing. It is amazing. It is Iowa and Southern coming up tonight to open the season, 6:30 tip at Carver Hawkeye Arena. I want to get your overall fearless forecast for the season coming up in a second, but I want to start with what you saw recently, Iowa's last preseason game, and there's so many different parts, and people want to see the Addy deals and the new players, the transfers, chit chat right. What stood out for you? I know it's a preseason game, but what stood out in that preseason game? Albeit be it new players or just old reliable players you knew you're going to have this year at the University of Iowa.
Yeah, I think the thing that you have to try to balance with like a game against Ashland University, who by the way is a fantastic D2 team. I mean, look at some of their stuff. They've won like 3 national titles in the last decade and a half. So certainly a good D2 team, but the thing they have to balance when a team like Iowa plays in Ashland, I mean, you're expecting them to win by a lot, and they won by 41. So the things that you look at, you don't necessarily look at how the game is playing out. It might be a 30-point game in the fourth quarter, but, Layla Hayes is in there, and she's a freshman center. How does she look in her first game as a Hawk? I just kind of some of that stuff is what you do. You don't really look at, the score or anything like that. You just kind of look at how the players are playing on the court, even if it is a 30 or 40-point game. The player that stood out to me the most was Emily Rodriguez, the UCF transfer. And, certainly as a newcomer was someone that I wanted to see, in action. We've heard a lot about her. I've, watched some stuff from when she committed to Iowa, some of her UCF tape, and thought she had a lot of potential. And I think we saw that against Ashland with how easy it is for her to get her looks for herself. And she knocked down 3 3-pointers, had 17 points in 14 minutes. So a pretty impressive showing for her. Chit Chat Wright looked really comfortable at the point guard position. She had 4 assists, finished with 12 points. Someone that Jan Jensen mentioned on Media Day, they want her to be more aggressive on the offensive end. She really kind of let those plays come to her and finishes with 12 points. I don't think anyone's going to argue with 12 points from her, even if, she's not forcing it. I thought all of her looks were ones that she kind of felt like it came to her. She wasn't really forcing anything, and she still comes away with double-digit scoring. You look at the front court with Hannah Stolke and Ava Hayden, and then Layla Hayes played really well in the second half. Again, Ashland, a team that doesn't have a lot of size. I think their tallest player was 6'3", and that was a true freshman, I believe. So it's one of those where you're not really going to have any big takeaways from the front court. But against the D2 team with the front court that Iowa has, you want to go just see them dominate, right? And Hannah Stolke goes 23 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, was 10 of 16. Ava Hayden, 14 points, 12 rebounds, a double-double, was 7 of 10. And then Layla Hayes had 10 points and 7 rebounds. So, again, not going to take away, say, like Iowa's front court is the best in the country because they combined for 47 points and however many rebounds. But they did exactly what you expect them to do against an undersized Ashland team that's go out and dominate, score with efficiency. And they did just that. You mentioned Addie Deal, obviously a lot of excitement for her arrival. The one player that to me just looked a little tight, freshman, obviously with the expectations that come in, everybody was super excited to see her get on the floor. Maybe just pressed a little bit early in the game, had a couple of turnovers where maybe she dribbled in too far and kind of got stuck in a spot, and but still finished with 5 assists. It had 4 rebounds, rebounded pretty well, and finished with 7 points. Made a deep 3 late in the game that I thought that deep 3, although again, 30-point game, whatever it was, a deep 3 to kind of that settled her down a little bit. And now coming into tonight, when it does matter, she's got that experience of that first game jitters out of the way, and she knocked down that first big shot to kind of settle herself down. The other player that got maybe a few more minutes than expected was Journey Houston, because Tegan Mulaney went out with what ended up being an ankle tweak. Not entirely sure if she will play tonight. Jan didn't obviously know right after the game what it was looking like for her. But Journey Houston comes in, plays 11 minutes, had 4 points and 7 rebounds. So she's one of those players that's going to be battling at the very end of that 9, 10, 11 player rotation for minutes. And maybe she's one of those players that, depending on the matchup, gets some minutes in games. But I thought she showed really well for an exhibition. Again, like I said, I just talked about a lot of things. But until you get onto the court tonight against the Southern, a D1 opponent, and then Evansville, and then you get into the UNI and the Drake, that's when we're going to start being able to see them go up against some tougher competition and start to have a few more takeaways.
You look at Journey Houston, I think she is behind players, so she's going to have to battle. But, that kind of speaks to the depth of this roster, because I think a lot of places a Journey Houston could go and make an instant impact. And not saying she's not going to, but it's not for sure. And it's not it's going to be earned if it is, because of how deep this team is going into the season. Southern tonight, you look at it, and their starting lineup from the preseason is that the starting lineup tonight? And then what do we know about Southern as we get ready to tip the season off at Carver Hawkeye Arena?
Yeah, I think with regards to the starting lineup, I would expect it to stay the same. I was someone that had Addie Deal in the starting lineup in my preseason projections. They went with Taylor McCabe for the exhibition game. I would expect that to stick, just because Addie Deal was, like I said, just a little nervous maybe for that first game, pressed a little bit. So I think they stick with Taylor McCabe, the veteran, in the starting lineup. But again, I mean, all these players are going to get minutes, so it doesn't really matter at this point. That's more something that you kind of start to think about down the road. What lineup do they want to have in Big Ten play, and that's when you start trying to have the same starting lineup every game and get in a groove with that. But I expect Taylor McCabe to be in the starting lineup tonight, and it'll be the same 5 for that. In terms of Southern, a team that made the NCAA tournament last year, got their first NCAA tournament win in program history. They played in the first 4 and beat UC San Diego, so great for them last year. They returned 2 starters, brought in 5 transfers, so there's a little bit of wondering about what their starting lineup is going to look like tonight. They did not play an exhibition game, which made my job really tough for kind of guessing what their starting lineup is going to be. A typical SWAC team, one of those teams that's going to go out and play a ton of power conference opponents. They played 25 games against power 4 conferences over the last 3 years, so they really load up the non-conference schedule. They're just 1-24 in those games, though. They did have an upset win over number 21 Oklahoma a couple of years ago, which is notable because Iowa comes in number 21 tonight. But a team that doesn't have a ton of size. They've got a player that's 6'5", but someone that has only averaged 13 minutes a game over the course of 2 seasons, a transfer from Alabama State. And outside of that, they don't really have a ton of size. So I think, again, similar to Ashland, maybe not as drastic as Ashland, because they do have a couple of players that are a little bit taller. I think this is a game where Iowa's really going to be able to dominate in the front court and get a lot of points in that area of the floor, in the paint or around the paint, and potentially have options to kick out for some shooters if Southern tries to really collapse down on that. But a game that you really like for the season opener, because it's tougher than Ashland, but it's not, you're not playing a ranked team right out of the gates. And I think Evansville on next Sunday is going to be the same way, where maybe some lower level opponents, not to be disrespectful to Southern or Evansville, but maybe some lower level mid majors to kind of continue to work out the kinks, get players on the floor, and again just start to get a rhythm going for the season before you get into the UNI and Drake, those two in-state opponents. Then again with Orlando when they play Baylor and Miami. So I really think not only tonight, but the early season schedule has a really good general progression from exhibition to lower level mid majors to a couple of in-state mid majors, and then you get into those big games in Orlando. But tonight I expect Iowa to take care of business. Like I said, not a lot of height, so I think Iowa will be able to dominate in the front court and open things up and potentially get some players on the court, kind of similar to the exhibition, where you get some players that are a little bit further down the bench and get them more minutes than maybe they would expect in a close game. And build that experience, build that chemistry with some of the new faces they have on this roster.
Kyle Huesmann joining me right now and off the air with Matt Randazzo. Kyle, you look at this season, and I always would give Tommy a hard time because his fearless forecasts weren't as fearless sometimes, and sometimes we knew what to expect. I think this year for him doing one for the men and for you doing one for the women was difficult because there's so many different faces. We don't know how this will look, when it'll all meld and mold together for the women or the men, and will they start fast, will it take some time, all that kind of stuff. You recently did one for the so I think it's difficult this year. You did one for this team and these women. When you started to sit down and do your fearless forecast, how did you approach it? And it wasn't more difficult than maybe obviously a year that that Caitlin Clark and these players are coming in. Was this year's fearless forecast a little more challenging?
Yeah, and I think last year was challenging, obviously with some of the new faces and some of the turnover, but this year and there's honestly several things that kind of go into making it a tough prediction. You start with like you said, with the not only Caitlin, I mean with Lisa Bluter as head coach and Kate Martin and Gabby Marshall and all those players that were there, Hannah being on that team, and you go back to like Monica and McKenna Warnock, those players, those teams. It was really easy to look at the schedule, and it could be a 30-game schedule, and there's 20, 22, 24 games where you're like, they're going to win those, right? And maybe there's one game where you're like, they're probably not going to win that. And then you have, 5 or 6, maybe 7 games where you're like, okay, these are the ones that I really have to pick. That makes it the job really easy. But I think the thing that's different about this year's team, and really last year's team as well, they aren't expected to be the top team in the Big Ten. Not to say this isn't going to be a good team. We've talked about where they can go with this season this year. But you look at it and it's very different. You look at it and there are still those games, those lower level Big Ten teams or some of the non-conference games where I was able to go in and pencil wins in right away. And then you look at, they played UConn in the Women's Champions Classic, the reigning national champions. Not to say Iowa can't win a game like that. I mean, they beat USC last year with Juju Watkins. But you look at like a UConn or a UCLA where they have to go on the road to UCLA, or even like a Maryland where Iowa historically has not played well. They're predicted to be a top 15 team. Probably those 3 games are the 3 that I go, okay, like these are probably not going to be wins. I'll pencil those in as losses. I come out of all that and I have 10, 12, 13 games where I sat down and go, okay, these are the games I have to pick. And you look at every single one of those as the game itself, just individual games. You go, I think Iowa could win every single one of these games. I think they could lose 8 or 9 of them because you just kind of look at how close the Big Ten is. And then even the non-conference with Baylor, who's, right around that top 15, top 20. Miami's going to be an NCAA tournament team, I believe, with some of the transfers they brought in. Iowa State's on the road, a team that Iowa's fared really well against over the last decade, but Iowa State's a top 15 team. And then in Big Ten play, that whole middle of the conference with Michigan State, Washington, you got Nebraska, even though Indiana's down, that's a road game. Minnesota's expected to be good this year. You got USC and Ohio State. So there's just so many games that Iowa not being that top team, that top 1 or 2 team in the Big Ten, they kind of fall into that middle of the pack. And there's just so many toss-up games where, maybe Iowa's a 60% favorite in one game, but they're a 40% favorite in the other. And it's just really tough to pick some of those. And then the other thing playing into it is it's not like a few years past when the West Coast teams weren't in the Big Ten where you had all these, what do you call home and home matchups. They got Nebraska home and away. But, so I pick a split there. And like it seems like Nebraska's good enough like the last 2 years where that's probably going to be a split. But everything else is just single games. So I got to look at a Michigan State and Iowa City and say, okay, Michigan State's a top 25 team. Is Iowa going to win this singular matchup? It's not like years past where you could just kind of bail out and go, okay, well, Iowa will win in Iowa City, Michigan State will win in East Lansing. So that's just kind of another thing that plays into it, is all these single games against really solid teams. There is no bailing out and saying, I think they'll split the meetings. So yeah, it is really it's really super tough. And, there's going to be a game where Iowa probably surprises and, hey, I didn't think they were going to win that game and they win it. But there's also probably going to be a game or two where you go, I had them as a favorite going in and they lost. Maybe a team exceeds expectations, an opponent exceeds expectations and beats them. So yeah, this is certainly, and like I said, last year was certainly super tough, but these last 2 years have been harder than obviously when the team was expected to go to the Elite Eight or the Final Four.
When you look at this team, then obviously it's on the Hawkeye Report. What do you have? I guess we'll start with the record overall. Your thoughts on their overall record and then Big Ten record as well.
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull it up here. I have to make sure I have it right. I have 22-7 overall.
Okay.
But really, what I said is I really have 21-8. That's really the prediction I'm going with. Just because, like I said, there's going to be a loss in there somewhere probably. And I'm not saying it's going to be a giant ups. They're not going to, I don't picking them to lose to Wisconsin or something, but there's going to be a loss in there where maybe it's that team that isn't quite the top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten, but maybe they're still in the back half of that middle of the pack, that team that's picked 9th or 10th in the Big Ten that kind of surprises them. And there have been some of those losses over the last few years. You look last year, they lost on the road to Oregon, a team that squeaked into the NCAA tournament, a game they probably should have won. You look back even a couple of years with Caitlin, they lost to Kansas State back-to-back years, who was a really good team, but just not maybe quite enough to upset Iowa 2 years in a row. They lost at Illinois last year, a team that I thought they could have beat. They lost at Illinois a couple of years ago with Caitlin. So there's always that couple of games that a game or two each season that maybe surprises a loss. But then there's also the USC where you go out and you beat USC. So I'm going with 21-8. I put 22-7 in my preview because I'm not gonna pick them to lose a game where I think they're a favorite, but there's probably going to be one of those in there. So I have them at 13-5 in Big Ten play. I think that, again, if that surprise loss comes in Big Ten play, you got 12-6 is kind of what I'm looking at. But I think there's a really kind of a big difference between the ceiling for this team and the floor for this team. I think, like I said at the beginning, when you look at the projection and say there's not many games that I would say they're probably going to lose. I think the ceiling, if every single thing hits, like everything that we've talked about in our preseason as questions and things like that, if every single thing hits and is very positive answer, I think they could be as high as like 24-5 or something like that. But I also think that they could be as low as 19-10 or 18-12. There's just so many games in that 40 to 60 win percent area that could go either way. And I think the biggest thing when you talk about how does Iowa get closer to that ceiling rather than the floor, last year they were 3-7 in games that were decided by 2 possessions or less, and 0-5 in games where they had a chance to win or tie on the final possession of the game. Wow. So really, really poor in terms of winning close games last year. And that's kind of one of those things in any sport. Sometimes you see some of that flip from year to year. Sometimes you see it with, a team returns a lot of players and they go from losing a lot of those close games to winning a lot of those close games. Or you see a team kind of turn over and it's a different identity, different team, and all of a sudden you win all the close games. So this is a different team from last year for Iowa. But I do think with all those games that I think you're kind of in that coin flip territory, I think winning close games is going to be something they're going to have to do this year. Otherwise, maybe they're going to fall closer to 20 wins than the 24 win thing that I think is more of a ceiling. So it'll be really interesting to see. Like I said, I think there's a big difference between the ceiling and potentially the floor. But if they were to do that, 22-7, 21-8, I think they'd be in a very similar position to last season in terms of going into the NCAA tournament. Do they host? Do they not? Obviously, that record would be excluding the Big Ten tournament, get a couple of wins there and certainly help yourself out. But like I said, I think this is going to be a team in terms of going into the NCAA tournament, very similar position to last year. I do think they will finish much higher than 11th in the Big Ten standings, though.
You look at it, Kyle, and it is one of those things where I think Iowa's a Sweet 16 or better team, depending maybe on where they go and if they get that home, first 2 games of the postseason. What's the hardest game on the schedule? What are I guess I'll put the hardest game on the schedule, UConn or whatever. And then what's the best home matchup? If an Iowa fan's watching this, and give me a couple home matchups where you're like, last year we knew USC and Caitlin Clark and all that kind of stuff was like, we knew Carver Hawkeye Arena was the place you have to be. Give me a few of those for Iowa this year.
Right. Yeah. I think when you look at hardest matchups, certainly it's UConn in the Women's Champions Classic, and UCLA out in Los Angeles. Those are the two toughest games. I mean, those are two of the top, in my opinion, two of the top three teams in the country. I would pick them in my Final Four as of right now, and I think it'd be really hard to knock me off of that thought process, at least unless someone gets injured or something like that. So those are certainly the toughest games. In terms of home games, I know people aren't super excited about the non-conference slate at Carver. They play a lot of their tougher games away. You talk about Baylor and Miami are down in Orlando. Iowa State's on the road. I think Fairfield, in terms of non-conference, is a game to look at. A team that's done really good in the Metro Atlantic. They're 78-14 in conference play over the last 5 seasons, so they've really dominated that conference. They were 2-2 against Power 4 teams last year. They returned a lot of their players from last season. So that's going to be in my Fearless forecast. I said this is kind of a similar matchup to IUPUI back in 2021. Iowa blew a late lead and got upset with that was a Caitlin team. So I think Fairfield has that potential if you really want to get deep into the weeds of a non-conference game. But in Big Ten play, I mean, when you have as many good teams as the Big Ten is, you're going to get a number of good games at home. I think Michigan late in the year, obviously a preseason top 15 team, that's going to be a big one. They get Nebraska at home, which is going to be a good one. But they get Michigan State in Iowa City as well, and they get Washington as well. So those are two teams where I was very similar position in my projected Big Ten standings. Michigan State and Washington are right there with Iowa, and they get them both in Iowa City. So that's big to me that they get both of those. Those will be two really big games. Those are in Michigan State is January 18th, and I think Washington is early February maybe. But they also get Ohio State at home. So there's a lot of really good home games. Minnesota's a team that some people are predicting to potentially be a fringe top 25 team if Mar Braun can finally stay healthy. So like I said, the Big Ten being the way that it is, there's so many games that inevitably some of them have to come to Carver Hawkeye Arena, and Iowa's got some tough road games as well. But I think they've got a lot of big home games that are going to be very pivotal for their season, just like we talked about.
Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report joining me right now on OTA. I had your partner in crime, the goofy, creepy guy, Tom Kakert, last week, and he said the question last week was who's going to win more games, the men or the women, and then also who goes farther, the men or the women. And it was like the first thing that popped in my head was the women, and then like he kind of brought up all these facts about Ben McCullum just winning wherever he goes. So I'm not putting the men versus the women. I guess mine is more on the women's side of things. We talked about maybe kind of the same position as last year. You mentioned floor and ceiling. Can you see the talents there for this team to be, Elite 8, Sweet 16? Like where's the ceiling exactly when it comes to Iowa women's basketball this year?
Yeah, I think, it's really tough when you start talking about like NCAA tournament because we don't, it's hard. It's so hard before the season because like you said,
it's only November. You should know by now.
We can talk about like what we think if the talent comes together, if the pieces fit together, but then we don't have a bracket in front of us right now. If here's Iowa's draw for the NCAA tournament. So that's the toughest part about it, because a big part of it, whether people want to believe it or not, a big part of it is what happens around you in the NCAA tournament. Like, you look at last year with Iowa, what happens if Florida Gulf Coast upsets Oklahoma in the first round? Now Iowa's probably going to the Sweet 16. So it's one of those that certainly you need some help in that way, or just the draw and how it plays out. But I think, if all these pieces come together, I think this is a Sweet 16 team. I think they could certainly host for the NCAA tournament, but even if they were a 5 seed, I think they have a chance to win on someone else's home floor. I would probably say that Sweet 16 right now, as of November 3rd, the season hasn't officially tipped off yet. I would say that Sweet 16 would be where I would put them as maybe not the ceiling, because I think, again, there's an upset somewhere. They get a decent draw where the team that they would have to play in the Sweet 16 Iowa matches up well with them. But I would think that right now Sweet 16 would probably be what I would consider to be the ceiling, unless maybe they really outplay expectations, or like I said, they get a good draw, someone gets upset. But I certainly think this team is a Sweet 16 team. And last year I didn't, I was kind of in that similar position where I thought they were a Sweet 16 team. I think I'm a little bit more confident this year in them being a Sweet 16 team with how deep they are, with some of the players that they have on this roster. Again, I've only seen an exhibition and 3 summer practices, so there's still a lot to figure out. But I do like the direction this team is headed in, and it's just a matter of, I think when we talk about this in a month from now, we're going to know a lot more about this team, though. A month from now, they'll have played a top 15 Baylor team. They'll have played a fringe NCAA tournament team in Miami. They'll have played a couple of in-state opponents, and we'll know a lot more then. But right now, I really like this team to potentially make the Sweet 16. And, we know how the NCAA tournament goes. If you make it past that first weekend, anything can happen after that.
Kyle, before I let you go, I got to ask you, give me, at the end of the season, who was Iowa's best player? Now, obviously, Hannah Stolke is sitting there, but Rodriguez looks so good, and you have all the young talent. I know that everyone's curious on Ava Hayden and what kind of jump she can make and all that kind of stuff. Is it as clear to say as the Big Ten preseason first teamer is the best player on this team, or at the end of the season, who will we say is Iowa's best player?
That's a really good question, because right now
that's why I do this. I'm a great journalist. No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
It's a good question, because I think it's interesting, because you look at that and you look at those players that you just mentioned. Those are all players that play, whether it's Emily or Hannah or Ava. Those are all. I mean, depending on how you break it down, I broke it down for my preview. I put Emily Rodriguez. I put the 3 position in the backcourt, which I know is wrong. But technically those are all front court players with a small forward, a power forward, and a center. So that's one of those where you say, wow, are Iowa's 3 best players all front court players? And I think that's possible. Certainly I think someone can emerge at the guard position. It's not impossible. They've got some really good players there. I think depending on the answer to that of those 3 players, I think Iowa's season could go completely different ways, and not necessarily in a bad way. If Hannah Stolke is Iowa's best player and she's a first-team All-Big Ten player, she probably made double-digit three-pointers, right? She probably really increased her efficiency from last season when she went down below 50%. That can only be good for Iowa, because I don't expect Ava Hayden to have a bad season. So if Hannah Stolke is your first-team All-Big Ten pick on this team, that means Ava Hayden probably had a really good year, because Iowa was able to space the floor. There was no, doubling down on Ava because Hannah can't make a three-pointer or can't shoot the mid-range. So if Hannah becomes that player, I think in this, it's going to turn into a really good season for Ava Hayden as well. And I think if Ava Hayden has a potentially all Big Ten type season, I don't think she's going to be first team, because you got Lauren Betts, you got Grace Van Sluten, you got Gracie Merkel over at Penn State. But if she hits second team all Big Ten, I think that means again that Hannah probably had a pretty good year to help open it up for Ava. And I think that means Ava did what we see from her is possible. But we aren't necessarily sure yet, because she started in the exhibition. That was her first career start. If Emily Rodriguez is Iowa's best player, I think that means she really, really had a good year, because we see it. We saw what she was able to do at UCF, but there's still the question of making sure, and we really didn't get into this a little bit ago, but the thing that they're trying to do with Emily Rodriguez right now is make sure that she is aware that she doesn't have to take every shot that is there for her. Last year at UCF, they were not a very good team. They were in a lot of games where they were down 15, 20 points in the second half. And rather than, trying to, not necessarily to say that she was like a ball hog or anything like that, but you get into a lot of situations where it's like, we're down 20. I'm just going to, I got a look that I created for myself. I'm going to put it up. And I think you saw some of that in the exhibition where she can really create her own shot. But now she doesn't have to shoot that fadeaway, shot that it's there. It's a shot attempt, and it's not a terrible shot attempt, but maybe someone else is open. So if they can get her to play in the Iowa system where maybe she dishes it off for some more assists rather than taking the shot that is there, and she can increase her efficiency, I think she could have a really good year. So I think if any of those 3 players end up being like an all Big Ten type player, Hannah, I think, is the one that could be first team all Big Ten. I think Emily Rodriguez and Ava Hayden would be more of second team all Big Ten. And I think even if Emily or Ava Hayden would be second team all Big Ten, I think Hannah would be right there with them in that category. If any of those 3 are Iowa's, really good best player, all Big Ten type player, I think Iowa had a really good year. I would probably just lean towards Hannah Stolke right now. Again, we haven't seen the season tip off yet, so it's hard to project. We're doing a lot of projecting with this team, which you have to do. But it's different from years past. We knew exactly what we were getting from the Caitlin teams. Last year, you pretty much knew what you were going to get from Lucy Olson. This year, it's a little bit different, and what are we going to get? Because there's so many new faces, so many players in new roles. So we're doing a lot of projecting this year. But I would lean towards Hannah Stolke right now. If she's able to be a capable player on the perimeter, I think she's the best player on this team.
Kyle Huesmann right now. Scott Dochterman coming up in just a matter of moments. Last one for you, Kyle. Who's the most improved player at the end of the year? Who's the person who was like, wow, this young lady took this jump and it's, next level type of stuff?
Yeah, that's I would probably go with, it could be either of the two transfers. Am I allowed to say Ava Hayden if we take out
Yeah.
like her, because her postseason, like, I'm not gonna say that her postseason was like insane, like All American level or something like that, but she was so good in the postseason that you kind of see what's coming.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody would be surprised if she had a really good year this year. But I think if you take her season as a whole, being kind of that third center on the roster after Hannah moved back to the center, I think she would probably have the biggest jump. And that's kind of the player that'd probably be my answer. But you look at an Emily Rodriguez, some of the stuff that I just talked about. Her efficiency wasn't great at UCF. She was able to score the ball really well, but there were some missed shots in there again for the same reasons I said. If she was to score in double figures for Iowa this year, like 13 points a game, I think her efficiency would be way higher. So I think you'd see a lot of improvement from her. And I think Chit Chat Wright is someone that people kind of haven't talked about as much in terms of being a really good player for Iowa. Great passer. We saw that in the exhibition. I think she's going to be fantastic in that role as a point guard that can really facilitate. But like I said, she put up 12 points in the exhibition and did not force a single shot. There was no shot that she took where I was like, I probably shouldn't have shot that. She really let the game come to her. And I think if they can add just a little extra level of aggression to her offense, where it's like maybe once or twice a game you take a shot that's like, maybe you shouldn't have shot that. But just to get that extra level out of her, I think she can be a double-digit scorer. I think she can – that 12 points, 4 or 5 assists, I think she can be that on a nightly basis. And she showed some of that last year at Georgia Tech. So I think my answer would be Ava Hayden in terms of most improved player. And some of that is maybe cheating because of what we saw at in the postseason last year. But I think Emily Rodriguez and Chit Chat Wright could really take a jump from what they showed last year.
Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report. His fearless forecast is available right now at HawkeyeReport.com. Also, I'm assuming you'll be at the game tonight. It's a silly assumption.
Of course. Why?
Of course.
You think there's any chance that I'm not going to be at the game tonight?
So check out Kyle on social media, and he'll have updates and all the coverage on the Hawkeye Report. It's that time of year, Kyle. You go from being on ever so often to Kyle Huesmann almost every day. So I look forward to it. I appreciate you, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, that is Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report, as I just mentioned. Kyle does a fantastic job with the women's basketball coverage and everything else, baseball, all that kind of stuff as well. So we got more to get to. Coming up after the break, we got Scott Dochterman. I'm super excited about this. Iowa was on the bye last week. Not that he just covers Iowa. He's always busy. And I tried to catch up with him last week, and he graciously said, let's do Monday. And I said, absolutely. So we got the week that was in college football, this little game, Iowa and Oregon game coming up as well. So much more to get to. Scott Dochterman and more right after this on OTA. All right, be honest. Are you craving Hungry Hobo again? You know, that fresh sliced meat piled high on those amazing sandwiches, hot off the grill chicken and steak with all those delicious toppings, the biggest and best selection of baked potatoes, or simply some waffle fries dipped in cheese. Well, now that Quad City favorite is even easier to get. Download the Hungry Hobo app today. Order ahead, skip the line, and earn rewards all at the same time. There's Double Points Monday and exclusive specials as well. With 12 locations in the Quad City area, it's Hungry Hobo. Now even easier to find, but still hard to resist.
Rafferty Funeral Home, dedicated to serving families in the Quad Cities since 2007.
Hi, welcome. Here, come on in.
An experienced staff plans each service to reflect the unique life and legacy of your loved one. Rafferty Funeral Home is proud to serve our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, helping you to celebrate your traditions and lasting memories no matter your faith, culture, or budget. Rafferty Funeral Home in Moline. Call today to discuss prearrangements.
When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Monday in the Quad Cities. Monday, November 3rd. What a great weekend of football and Game 7 of baseball. College football gets better and better each and every weekend. My NFL weekend could have been a little bit better. It was better, though, for this guy. And he says he likes the Lions a little bit. But, Scott, your Bears, that's a beautiful thing.
There was a range of emotions, let's put it that way, on Sunday afternoon, and Sunday is one of my busiest days as a reporter and as a writer for The Athletic, and so I had the game on my laptop because, well, I have YouTube TV, and that one actually continues to show, but then I'm watching that, I'm doing some other stuff, and then all of a sudden I turned it off. I actually go to the Vikings game. The Vikings-Lions game, because the Bears got an interception. They're up 2 touchdowns. A couple of minutes left. All right, I'm going to go. And I just saw Jameson Williams score a touchdown. So I thought, all right, here we go. And then Tom Gagert, texts and it's like, I can't believe we're going to lose this game. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I go back and it was like, they're up 6. And I'm like, I can't believe this. This is typical Bears. And then they got bailed out, which never happens to the Bears, ever.
It was weird because it's one of those, like I had a buddy text me and like he probably knew not to text me because I was cranky at the Lions game. But he's like, it's a weird NFL Sunday loading. And that makes sense. You look up and I'm watching and like I see the Packers losing. Not the weird Bears winning's not weird, but then somebody behind us was like, oh, Packers lost, but the Bears are rolling. And it was 47 or 41-27. I'm like, yeah. And then my son had to tell me on the way out the car, he's like, Bears scored with 17 seconds left to win. I was like, you've got to be. So just a crazy, this is the beautiful time of year is because and that's the NFL too, right, Doc? They want things to be crazy. They want the parity, and that's exactly what they're getting right now when it comes to the NFL. College football, of course, your thing. I want to talk to you about a bunch of stuff today, and I want to streamline it so I don't keep you for 3 hours. This past weekend, I want to start with Illinois because obviously disappointing that there were 5-3 coming into this point of the season. But they have 4 very winnable games, now 3 very winnable games. They get to 6 victories. They're 6-3. Yes, I know we talked playoffs and expectations, but if Illinois goes 9-3, that's really, really good, isn't it?
For Illinois, it's actually a really big step in the right direction just to get to this point. Because I think 2010 and 2011 were the last 2 times that they won, that they went to bowls in consecutive seasons. That's huge to be able to do that consecutively and do it right as you get into November, and to do it the way they did it against Rutgers, which I think is actually a pretty good team. I don't think they would be a bowl team without their record or without their schedule. So that was a big step forward. And as you said, with Brett building a program, and he's done it the right way. He's built it developmentally. He's done a really good job of recruiting in the state of Illinois, something that Lovie Smith could not do when he was there. I mean, people know him. And as we both know, I grew up on the river and you work on both sides of the river there. It's such a diverse region, the state of Illinois, where you've got the Chicagoland, which is like its own state. You got Northern Illinois, which is something. And then when you get kind of south of I-80 to St. Louis, it's kind of its own little state. And then, of course, there's downstate. So it's just this really diverse state. And he's done a really good job of building that up, getting good recruits there, keeping them home. And as you mentioned, to play Maryland at Wisconsin and Northwestern to finish, I mean, I think at a minimum, they're probably 2-1. If not 3-0. And if you can get to 9, even 10 wins with a bowl game, really shows progress, really shows that this program is beyond just a 1-year wonder, then fall to 5-7, which they've done so many times. And I think Brett has really elevated the program. Now they've got a lot of turnover coming up after this year because they did bring so many people back, but that'll be Brett's next challenge to maintain that. But I think so far he's done a really good job. Establishing Illinois is just, again, beyond a nice story, and then they'll go back to mediocrity.
Scott Dochterman from The Athletic joining me right now. All right, let's get to the Hawkeyes because they take that bye week. If I told you after Indiana during that bye week that Iowa would be 6-2, welcoming Oregon to town with this type of hype and atmosphere, would you have thought I was crazy? Would you have thought, well, it's possible? Like, what would you have said to young, dumb Matt if he came up to you and said 6-2 and this huge game with Oregon would be coming up in a month?
I would have thought it was somewhat unlikely just because at that time Penn State was still a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Penn State was still pretty good. And so I thought, before the season, I thought Iowa's playing 3 playoff teams from last year at home. And they're going to get one of them, I thought. And it was Indiana, Penn State, or Oregon. I wasn't sure which one. They've always played Penn State tough at home. So I kind of thought, well, maybe it'll be that one. So I wouldn't have been totally shocked. But I think what I've seen is incredible growth from this program. And a lot of it stems from the Indiana game. I mean, it was a tough loss. It's something that they continue to kind of work past. But I think if nothing else, it showed, man, this team could compete with the best teams in the country. And Indiana, their metrics are off the charts. The way they're scoring, the way they're defending, they're just steamrolling teams. And I think it validated Iowa as a decent team by simply Indiana going to Oregon and winning by 10. So, I mean, right now you're looking at a team that's really moving in the right direction. And with tomorrow's CFP ratings coming out, Iowa is so undervalued by AP and even the coaches poll. You're going to see a major jump in the CFP because I'm going through all the metrics for everybody. I'm writing this tomorrow, and it's just going to be like, it's been very daunting to try to do this without a computer program. But Iowa is off the charts. Even on offense, they're off the charts. So it's, I think, based on the way the committee views Iowa, the way it'll accept the Iowa style of play, the way they maximize the style of play on offense too, and the way they competed with Indiana, it would not shock me at all if they're somewhere in the teens.
Oh, wow. Scott Dochterman joining me right now. And you mentioned, Scott, the ranking's not there. And I know it has the Iowa fan base cranky. I think 26th in the AP if you look at it this week. Do you get caught up with that kind of stuff? I mean, or should fans? I shouldn't say should you, but should fans? Or you mentioned the one that means something is coming out tomorrow, and that's the one I think that takes into account more than just what the brilliant sports writers, and I'm not taking anything away from you guys, think of Iowa. You can't watch every game. You know what I mean? Like, they can't watch every game, but the one that counts is tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, that one's the only one that really matters. I mean, it's, until we get to the CFP, it's just kind of a way to rate these teams. And one thing I've noticed, is especially true even last 5 to 10 years, is there's a lot of recidivism among it, which is, look at Michigan. Michigan loses big to USC. It kind of falls down. Well, then it rebounds. It wins a couple of games, and it never really leaves the poll. And then somebody wins big, they jump 7 or 8 spots, then they lose, and then they fall down. But a lot of these teams are, they're 7-2, and so is this team. There's really no advancement, and I think it's a really difficult ceiling for Iowa to get into. And then, of course, they didn't play this weekend, so you're kind of out of sight, out of mind. But, I think people have been missing a lot of what the Hawkeyes have done. And a few other teams. I think Washington was another one that's really been underranked because it lost at home to Ohio State, which there's no shame in that. And then they went to Michigan and lost by 17, but it was 9 a.m. their body clock time. And, you're going to the big house. And like with Iowa, they've lost total 2 games by 8 points. Now, Iowa State's recent slide does not help them at all, but the Indiana result is almost better than if they won, because then everybody would be doubting Indiana if they did win. So I think but the fans will want to clomb on to AP voters and oh, what are you missing? That's counterproductive. I can tell you that from the get-go, that you'll just piss them off. They'll just piss him off. And then the other part is then they'll be gloating on the other side if Oregon goes out and wins.
Yeah.
Then it'll be like, I'm one of the smart ones who didn't rank Iowa. And then it makes you feel pretty crunchy. So I think that try to resist it, and at least try to resist it for 2 weeks. If they go 2-0 and beat Oregon and USC, then spike that football and let it go to the sky.
Doc, talk to me about the eyeball test, because I think there's been years that Iowa has been ranked highly and they annoy the rest of the nation because they might not pass the eyeball test when it comes to dominating victories or the way it looks in the field. They're a good football team, but they're not like impressing as much as I think they are right now. When I look at them eyeball test, Minnesota was something in that first 20 minutes, something that I haven't watched from an Iowa team in 25 years that I've gotten to cover them the way they did it in so many different aspects. But you look 78-3 against rivals. I mean, blowing out 2 rivals, beating a Penn State team, and I know they're down, but eyeball tested for me. Does this team pass your eyeball test when it comes to what you're seeing each and every Saturday right now?
For sure. It's not quite as dominant of a defense as what it's had the last few years, but it's still pretty good. You look at the numbers right now, and it's still right up there. And again, what they did against Indiana tells me everything, about how good this team can be. And, and then offensively, their offensive line is as good, or if not better, than everybody in the country. I mean, it is run blocking. It is for sure. It is a powerful unit, and they have good running backs. And then of course you got a running quarterback. I think eyeball test that they are just the only issues that Iowa really has or has had is, one, you got to pass the ball because people like excitement, and that's an exciting way to play football. 2, score early and get on teams early, which they did against Minnesota, of course, and they did that against Wisconsin. And I think that kind of allows the eyeball test to catch up with you. But, because if you're up 7-3 at halftime, but then you win 31-10, then people don't remember that, but they do remember the 17-0 lead in the first quarter. And then, then you can coast and say, well, they were up big. They didn't really care. So I think that's part of it with the eyeball test. And Iowa capitalizing early against Minnesota was helpful. But again, this is the week to impress everybody. You're playing a legit, really good team that would be in the playoff right now, and you're playing them at home. You got a prime television spot. You got a big pregame show in town. You're playing a team that statistically is one of the best in the country. So you pass the eyeball test by winning, but if you look good doing it, you'll vault in every poll.
Doc, when you look at the way this weekend is structured, there's the big noon kick, or the show's coming, and then they're a 2:30. It was the biggest question of the week, all week. Everybody kept texting me, what's the game time? Does it benefit Iowa 2:30? There's some people who you mentioned the body clock at 9 a.m. at 11 o'clock. Not that Iowa had any say in it. Is this, I like the fact that a 2:30 game, it's not a night game, but boy, by second half, it is a night game. Your thoughts on, do fans get caught up in all that, or was it an advantageous situation for Iowa with the kick time at 2:30?
You could see it different ways, Matt. And as we know, if it's at noon and they're playing at 9 o'clock and their body time, and they're getting up at 5:30 or 6 their time, and that could be a challenge. But here's the thing: we know what the Iowa scene is like, and the later in the day, the more feisty, rambunctious, deep into it Iowa fans can get. And as you said, because we turn back the clocks, my least favorite thing we do as a society, we did that the other day, that it's going to be dark by halftime. Yeah. And so we've got this, so you're going to have Kinnick after dark, and you're going to have a raucous atmosphere. It's sold out. It's going to be pumped. And if Iowa can play to that and be in the game, compete in the game, it's going to get wild. And they've never been here. I mean, not since '94. So none of the players have been alive for this. I'm sure even a couple of assistants probably haven't been alive for the last time Oregon and Iowa played. So I think it benefits Iowa to be, Oregon's going to feel a little bit more like the traditional sleep schedule, but to get this atmosphere at a place that, Autzen Stadium has a great reputation at Oregon, but Iowa does too at Kinnick Stadium. And I think that they'll realize that from the get-go, that this is a different kind of ball game and they're in a different environment.
A few more for Scott Dochterman before we let him go. And Scott, I just realized your name isn't spelled correctly. Oh my goodness. And see, that's the TV guy. Not even, see, I need a producer. Watch this, Scott. The magic of television. Hopefully I can get it fixed.
Right.
Boom. There we go.
Go.
I just noticed it. So probably somebody in the chat is yelling at me. But anyways, a few more before I let you go because I know you're a busy guy. Tell people about Oregon. I know that they're ranked high in the nation. They're really, really good. They went to Penn State and won. They're a playoff team if it all stopped and happened today. I think people know how good Iowa's playing and they think we're at home. They're coming to our place. It's a really good football team. Tell us about Oregon and what to expect this weekend.
This is a team that you immediately the thought comes in as a finesse team. That's what everybody will think, that, oh, well, our physicality will wear them down. No, this isn't that type of a team. This is a team that's very physical. This is a team that's, scores 41 points a game and it gives up 13. It's number one in rushing in the Big Ten, even over Iowa, averages more than 6 yards a carry. It's a team that defensively is elite. So it's got every edge you want. Indiana was the most complete team Iowa's played. This is a very close second. It is a little bit different in that I think there's a little more flash to its offense. I think that they have a little bit better running game than Indiana had. So Iowa's going to have to be very careful in how it fills run gaps and whether the linebackers can get to the ball and not miss tackles. And I think Jaden Montgomery has helped Iowa in that regard. I think he's been an improvement at middle linebacker in that way. But they have one of the best. Last year we got to see Jeremiah Smith, who's maybe as good of a receiver as we've ever seen in the Big Ten. They've got another really good freshman in DeCorian Moore, and he was a 5-star, and he's elite. They've got probably the best tight end in the Big Ten in Kenyon Sadiq. Dante Moore, who left the game against Wisconsin with a broken nose, is also 70% completion percentage guy, kind of dual threat. Iowa got a chance. They wanted him. They recruited him, but he went to UCLA and then in Oregon. He's out of Detroit. So they have a really good offensive line too. So this is a unit and a team that's you're going to have to play well for 4 quarters. You can't have any slip ups, or they will take advantage of it. But they're not infallible. I mean, they only beat Wisconsin 21-7. They went to Happy Valley and won in double overtime, and they struggled at Northwestern too. Very physical team. So Iowa is capable of winning. It's just going to have to play probably its best game to do.
Is it too early in the week to get a prediction score-wise from you? Am I putting cart ahead of horse?
I'll say Oregon by 3, but I don't know that I'll change from that. But I also think Iowa is very much capable of winning. This is not one of those games like when you went to Ohio State last year, you're like, they're not winning this game. Yeah. And if all the things play right, maybe they're in it at the very, very end. That's kind of like wishful thinking. That's not wishful thinking today. Mm-hmm. It's, can Iowa be efficient on offense, avoid costly mistakes? Because if you think about the Penn State game and the Indiana game, I mean, they had a turnover on their first possession that led directly to a touchdown in both games. And they had really bad miscues at the end of first halves. One was a blocked field goal that went for a touchdown. The other one was Indiana was just kind of running out the clock, and then nobody tackled the runner, and then all of a sudden it led to a field goal. Yeah. So if Iowa shores up those not minor, but those issues, plays turnover free, plays really good field possession football, but don't be afraid to be aggressive either and taking risks when necessary. If Iowa can do all that, Iowa will be in this game in the fourth quarter. And if they win it, I would not be surprised at all.
You mentioned it. Those mistakes against Indiana and Penn State, those don't usually happen to a Kirk Ferentz. They're very uncharacteristic turnovers or mistakes for Iowa. Before I let you go, what is Nebraska doing this weekend? What I mean, I understand the blackout and all those kind of things this past weekend, but the back in black too?
Seems pretty obtuse to me. I mean, the lack of self-awareness has been kind of eye-rolling. I understand, the blackout, everybody's doing those things. Minnesota does it, Iowa State does it, you kind of laugh it off, haha, but it's a way to entice people. But back in black, and then to say, we don't care what Iowa does, that's us. And somebody else said, well, we started playing back in black in the 90s for our black shirts. Come on, man. Iowa doesn't play jump around when they walk out of the tunnel. There's certain things you just have to have some self-awareness about. And that's not been the strength of that program, you can say forever, but certainly since they've been in the Big Ten, because nobody cares about your 5 national titles. Nobody on your team was alive when you won national titles.
Yeah.
Therefore, it doesn't matter. It's like walking to, Cowboys fans don't go on the street and say, yeah, but we won 3 titles in the 90s. You wish you would have done that too. Well, you know what? I was in my 20s in the 90s. I'm in my 50s now. So it doesn't matter. It's ancient history.
Yeah, no, it's weird that if they played the Bulls, intro, if Iowa came out to that this week, it'd be it doesn't make the bigger story in the game that nobody was really talking about was Raiola getting hurt. That's a big deal for Nebraska, and it does affect. Never rooting for an injury as an Iowa fan, but that affects that Black Friday game. Makes it. It's got to make it a more winnable game for Iowa coming up on Black Friday.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback that they got now, the freshman is a little more mobile than Raiola. I mean, Raiola's, wants to be, Patrick Mahomes. He plays like him, but he's got a really good arm. He's pretty good. But I mean, when you're looking at the rest of their schedule, it's not like they have a walk in the park. They're winnable games, but they're not. They're games they could very easily lose. I mean, going to UCLA. UCLA's been a weird team, especially at home.
Yeah. In
the Rose Bowl, that might be a game that they could fall short on. Then they got a week off. Then they go to Penn State. At some point, Penn State's going to rise up.
Yep.
And I even put them in my bowl projections today and going to the Pinstripe Bowl because they haven't won a Big Ten game and they're not going to win this week against Indiana, but they play Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers to finish. I think they could probably win those 3. And then finally, Iowa at home. Nebraska hasn't beaten Iowa at home since 2011. Wow. So, I mean, come on. They could fall from 6-2 to 6-6 very easily. And not just because of one injury, but it really puts them in that position. So I'll be interested to see how their trajectory is. I mean, they're not going to be in the playoff now for sure. And, if they can go 1-2, that's probably a decent run without having their quarterback.
No, absolutely. Doc, tell people where they get your stuff, The Athletic, all that kind of stuff. What's your plans? You're this weekend. You're in Iowa, right?
I am. I'm staying home. I'm happy about that. I'm going to be writing a lot of Iowa football, which I'm, happy with this week. So you can find me at The Athletic or at Twitter, and I'll put my posts there, or X, I should say, and I'll have my links there. But yeah, I wrote about bowl projections today, so that was kind of fun, and had I think Illinois. I can't remember if I had them going to Vegas or going to or going to Music City. I think it was Music City Bowl actually. So that would be kind of cool for them. And then Iowa going to Tampa and playing Oklahoma. So in the ReliaQuest Bowl. So it's kind of fun to get this kicked up again. Now that you got CFP, there's a balance to it. I've never been the one that likes to do bowl projections, September 15th. But when you start to get, it's kind of like with the the NCAA tournament bracketology.
Yep.
Before Groundhog Day, I'm kind of like, this is stupid.
I just asked
Groundhog
Kyle.
Day, you start looking.
I just asked Kyle Huesmann. I said, "What do you see Iowa as a Sweet 16 team?" And he's like, "Well, it's hard to project." I'm like, "Of course it is. It's November. You shouldn't have to project what goes on. It's easier to do come February." Last thing, did you watch Game 7 this weekend? Were you busy or did you get a chance to? It's not the best Game 7 ever, is it? Because 2016, in my opinion, is the best. But go ahead.
I'm a Cubs fan, so anything I say about Game 7s is biased. That was the greatest game as a fan that I've ever witnessed in my life.
Yep.
The range of emotions. I mean, Sunday was just nothing compared to that. That was, my son his bedroom's next to the TV, and he'd come out when he'd hear me, and I'm like, no, stay in there, because every time you come out here, something bad happens. But my wife gave me a W flag as soon as it was over, and I'm running up down the street.
Yeah,
and everything.
that's me. I popped champagne outside. I went outside and I let my son, he grabbed like a high C fruit drink, and I grabbed the champagne, and I did and I'll tell this real fast. My son said to me, and he was 7 at the time, and the other ones were asleep, and it happens. And like, I'll admit it. I was emotional. My eyes were a little watery, and I'm like, and he looks at me, he goes, "Dad," he's 7. Remember, he's 7, Scott. And he goes, "I've been waiting for this my whole life." And I said, "Shut up. You're 7. Like, leave me alone." But all the emotions. But that Game 7 was pretty good on Saturday night.
Fantastic. And, I have YouTube TV, so I was kind of in a bad mood all day because I have to watch all these games. And I'm like, I'm not paying for any other service right now. But on Saturday night, it allowed me to use the 4 screen, and I was able to get, Nebraska, USC, Michigan, Purdue, and then Game 7. And then a lot of times I was watching Game 7. And then when it got to the end, because that was right after all the college games subsided, I was like, this is fantastic. And man, what a range of emotions it was for everything. I couldn't stay up for the 18 innings. I wanted to a few days ago, but I tape delayed it so I could speed through it the next morning. And it was a great World Series. It really was. And I wish my team was in it, but I was happy with their season overall, and go get them next year.
We'll wait till next year, like we always say as Cub fans. Doc, I always appreciate you. Your time is valuable, so thank you for the time. I'll probably see you tomorrow. I'm going to head up to get some radio stuff to do in Iowa City, so I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right. That is Scott Dochterman from The Athletic joining us live right here on Off Day with Matt Randazzo on a Monday. And what a great week it's setting up to be. What a great weekend as well when you look at Iowa and Oregon coming up, as big of a game in Iowa City as I can remember for a little bit of time now. And like Scott said, it's a winnable game. Like, it's not one of those things where if Iowa does everything right, they possibly could win. If they play good, it should be a good football game. I mean, if they play bad, they're not going to win. But I don't think they got to be perfect in any way, shape, or form in order to beat Oregon. Very good Oregon team. And I think that's one thing we're going to educate ourselves throughout the week here on OTA, because I think Iowa fans are excited, as they should be. But it's a really good Oregon team. So we'll talk more about that throughout the week right here on OTA. We got more to get to. It's already hour number 2 already. We're rocking and rolling here on a Monday. Coming up, we'll talk more about the Bears, about my Lions, about some high school football. We'll talk about Geneseo and their amazing win coming up on Friday, or last Friday, I should say. A little more Game 7 stuff. John Marx, Marxy Monday, is straight ahead right after this. You're watching OTA on a Monday. We'll be right back.
Give me the keys. Learning to drive can be stressful for both the student and, yes, the parent as well. Relax. There's an easy way to avoid the stress. Skiles Driving School in East Moline has been helping new drivers hit the road with confidence for over 20 years. Whether you're a teen earning your first license or an adult looking for behind-the-wheel training, we've got you covered. Their certified instructors are patient, experienced, and use modern vehicles equipped for safety and comfort. From classroom instruction to real-world driving, we make learning safe, affordable, and even fun. Call 309-278-0098 or visit skylesdriving.com. Skiles Driving School. Get in, buckle up, drive your future forward.
Are you looking to take your next party, tailgate, or golf outing to the next level? You need Mobile Party Experience. MPX features 3 top-of-the-line party trailers equipped with all the amenities you need to party like a rock star. Smart TVs, Yeti coolers, JBL sound systems, grills, bathrooms, and much more. Mobile Party Experience is an experience like no other. Check out my-mpx.com or call 563-514-1470 and book your Mobile Party Experience today. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Monday in the Quad Cities. A busy Monday it is in the world of sports. So much going on over the weekend, and I have to decompress and just let everything out, and kind of maybe a therapy session for me after spending my weekend in Detroit watching the Lions lose. John Marx joins us right now on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Johnny, first and foremost, forget my weekend. Halloween weekend, how was it? I know you went and watched your boy play football. Good weekend for the Marxes?
Good. It's always a good weekend when I can see my son play. They didn't win, but it was nice to see him. A couple mistakes that we won't get into, but yes, but Friday night might have been the highlight football wise of the weekend, because the team we wanted to win won. We went and saw, which I think there are a lot of really good. Clear Lake might be as good a football team in 3A. I think we saw as good a football team as there is in 1A in Regina Catholic. We saw them beat Cascade 52-13. Maddie, they could have scored 70. We had a great time up there. And you know the story when the pandemic hit in 2020, 21-20. There wasn't football in Illinois in the fall.
Yeah.
And we had a great friend who asked my son to come up and play baseball for Regina. And then Jack hurt his nose, and then we went up there and played football. And he went up there. We moved, did everything right, unlike some people. And he was a two-way player and their long snapper, and we had the greatest time. We're treated like family. He played when you can play high school football, for Marv Cook,
yeah,
and Jason Dumont and Ed Hinkle and Tyler Ellsbury and Coach Nave, and it was the greatest experience for our family, for Jack. At Allman, and then he came back and played. I think he led the nation in games played. They won a state championship at Regina, and he was all district, whatever. And then he came back and played at Allman for 6 games in the pandemic spring season. So, and those coaches and people at Regina, they even mentioned, Jackson didn't graduate from there, but they mentioned him in their graduation speech that year. So
that's cool.
Great people, treat us like gold, still do. We went up there, watched that. They are as explosive an offense as there is in that sector of high school football. And that was our long story short. I'm really sorry, everybody, but fabulous, really good football team, great staff. Coach Ellsbury, Tyler Ellsbury, for you Iowa fans, is on the staff. Where do you get how many high school football teams have him as one of your line guys? So great job. It was a lot of fun, and we just set out the candy on the porch, and thank God we live in Bettendorf.
Johnny, it's funny because Halloween seems so far away. It was Friday. That's weird.
Yeah.
Because so we went trick-or-treating. We didn't. My younger ones did. My older ones, I think my third one kind of snuck in and got a lot of candy, and then Charlie didn't. He walked the dog. But we left with Johnny, I have so much candy. I'm not exaggerating. We probably have 4 bags that weigh 10, 20 pounds down in the so we just put it on the counter, and then we headed out to Michigan. So we got back last night at like midnight, and there's this just mountain of candy. And here I am after eating everything Michigan has to offer and just being a just an unhealthy dude all weekend. I come home and I'm like, on the way home, I'm telling my wife, like, I gotta, like, I'm gonna get after it this week, get working out, cut out eating bad, and then I come home and there's a mountain of candies. But no, I think I want to start with high school football since you started about Regina. We'll get to the Bears and the Lions and all that stuff, I promise. But it was a crazy busy weekend of high school football. I want to start on Friday night because I'm going up to Michigan and kind of watching and monitoring the Geneseo game. What a finish! To be able to, one, come down, score, not get the 2-point conversion, and hats off to Coach Furlong for going for it and going for the 2-point conversion and trying to get the win, and then to get the onside kick, get down, and for them to make that game-winning field goal. Just feel great about the program. And it wasn't like you narrowly beat a first-round opponent. Rochelle's really good. I was impressed with both teams, and obviously we spent Friday out in Geneseo doing the show out there, but so I guess I'll take a little credit. I think I can. Maybe it was the OTA luck, but your thoughts on Geneseo, because a great historic program, and I think Matt Furlong has just hit the ground running with that program, and for them to move on to the second round is really, really cool.
That's the events of how it all transpired, Matty, just makes somebody, I coach high school football for almost 30 years. That was the fun part. Here you've got it. You don't, in the playoffs, you don't play for a tie in overtime. You play to win the football game right there and then. And if you get that, it's a huge momentum builder for your next football game. It's a huge momentum builder for your program because you're telling the world we're not going to settle for a tie and play for overtime. That is a great message to send to young people. But you didn't get the 2-point conversion. Great job. Rochelle, phenomenal program. Had a chance to talk to their coach in the fall. Spent some time in Rochelle. Great town, great people, great program. Take that another step. You don't get the 2-point conversion, but you practice. Here's that that last section of practice every day, and especially on Wednesdays and Thursdays, when you go over all your special teams, especially your walkthrough on Thursday, is you practice your onside kick. You practice your hands team. You go back over this, Maddie, and you practice this every day. People, is there enough time spent on it? Never at the high school level. As somebody whose son was an FBS long snapper, it's never enough time in high school spent at it. So let's take that. They executed the perfect onside kick. It was beautiful to watch. They played it hard, and then they had the composure enough to get themselves with how many seconds and no timeouts? An opportunity to get themselves in field goal. They run the firehouse. They get everybody out there, and it's a 36-yard field goal. Never a gimme in high school. The op is perfect. They get it down, and they win. My goodness, those are the kinds of things, starting with going for 2, Matt, and so you didn't get it. Those are momentum and program builders down the road. And now can they go win it? With all due respect to Macomb, and I'm throwing no one, that doesn't bode well for Macomb in the next round, how they won that football game. Those kids are still riding that. This is Mondays are our walkthrough anymore. This will be the most energetic week of practice they've had all year.
And you think about it too, a Macomb team who's had a fantastic season. It should be a really good game down in Macomb. But you look at Geneseo, they've won 6 straight against bigger schools, against the UTs and people like that. Yep. So Quincy, they went down to Quincy and handled Quincy pretty easily. So and now you're looking at a possibility, and we can talk about this. They cannot. But they're talking about hosting a quarterfinal game at historic Bob Reed Field. Obviously it's going to be a very good football team coming to town and all those kind of things. But the fact that you could have a quarterfinal game in that town is really, really exciting. Now, we can talk about this. Anybody in Geneseo or Coach Furlong would be like, shut up, don't say that, because Macomb is a good football team. And they won and impressed on Saturday as well. But hats off to Geneseo and what they did. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, they roll up the streets in Geneseo for a regular season game, Maddie.
Yeah.
And they put the signs out. You're in Maple Leaf. No, I've been on the other side.
Yeah.
I know what rolling into that town or what them that whole and they'll fill both sides. They'll be 7 deep at the fence. That's the beauty, and it will always be the beauty of that's always endeared. And I love maybe most about Geneseo is the way they support their young people.
Yeah, no, they do a great job. I don't want to get into every single high school football game. I do want to mention Moline because they win 24-0. And the thing we sleep on, because we talk so much about high school football and we talk about the highlights and the touchdowns and the passing, and they don't give up any points, Johnny. They haven't since I don't know the last time they gave up more than 7 points in a game. And Andrew, yes, a 5-4 football team coming to Moline, but they had played 3 8-1 teams and played them all very closely. So I thought it was an impressive, resounding victory. And it wasn't the win that impressed me. They don't give up any points, which bodes well in the postseason.
Well, and Keaton Schulder, Latorian Hill, etc. And I think Drew Phillips is the best defensive player in our area. And I know he's a tremendous baseball player. And I've told his dad and mom this. He should explore every opportunity that will help him defer the cost of college. As a college, either a rover or a safety, he has all the intangibles. And I know I'm singling one person out because he's one of my favorite people, but they have a great front 3-4. They have linebackers that fly to the football, and then they're really good on the back end. They're not going to beat themselves by letting you score 40. It's just not going to happen. And 7A, not easy. Tip your hat, Coach Morrissey, special group. I would love, you know what? You're one of his good friends. You're still one of those guys that give him a hard time. Hey, have you won more than 2 playoff games, big boy? Well, here we go. This might be that group, and I would love for it to be that group that takes Moline football to the next step.
Yeah, no, an opportunity. They go on the road this weekend and then see what can go from there. Obviously, one game at a time. The Western Big Six wise, those 2 schools win. UT Quincy and Sterling all see their seasons comes to a loss. Rock Ridge, impressive. We knew that. Wilmington kind of sits out there as a quarterfinal opponent for them, and I don't think you can put cart ahead of horse. But obviously, they go on the road this weekend. But it'd be great to see them with a quarterfinal game against Wilmington at home coming up. You look at Monmouth Roseville, impressive as well on the track. So 2 teams that dominated and played really well. Newman as well played well. So several teams around the area, and hats off to some teams that people didn't think had a chance and hung around. Guy Derrick's and company were supposed to go get their butts kicked, and they hung in the entire game, and you knew that group would, and they made it an interesting afternoon as well. So a lot of fun in high school football. We'll have Ty Taylor coming up this week as well. We'll have Greg Armstrong. We're going to talk to some of these coaches throughout the week. So, but I just wanted to mention high school football before we got rolling on. The thing people probably want me to talk about is the Lions losing. I didn't see that coming. Although, you know what? I'll say this. And I'm not going to blame Charlie. God bless him. But he was really confident, and I'm just not. He's a younger Lions fan. I'm still that old grizzled veteran that just expects bad things to happen. And everything he kept saying, I'm like, but buddy, JJ McCarthy's back and he's coming to Michigan. He didn't play that great. He had a couple good drives. The Lions played bad, but that was going on. Their tackles were back, and they're 2 really good tackles, and they'd been out for 3 weeks, and they're coming back, and they got parts and pieces. And I think O'Connell's one of the best coaches in NFL. So I'm like, this isn't just a disaster coming to town. With all that being said, and we're not leading with the Lions because I want to talk Bears. Lions played awful. They just didn't play well. That's the second straight. That's the second straight time that game that their offense hasn't looked elite. And it's funny because they scored 24 points in both those games, won 1, lost 1. And when you set a standard way up here, when it's here, and so that's the first game that I saw, because Ben Johnson owned Brian Flores. In this matchup with the DC from Minnesota, Ben Johnson owned him the last 3 years. And this was the first time that I was like, oh, this was the biggest example of the Lions missing Ben Johnson, because I don't think, the Vikings came in giving up 130 yards on the ground. The Lions barely ran the football. They didn't try to run the football. So, yeah, frustrating. Lions played bad. Dumb things happened. I think they played as bad as they could have and almost still came back and won the game. But in this league, it's just, you mentioned before we got going, parity is such a big thing. So Lions lose. By the way, Jack Campbell is an amazing football player. Just an amazing football player. And Sam Laporta. So my Iowa guys going up there, I mean, Laporta was outstanding. Jack Campbell is one of the best linebackers in all of football. Like, all of football. And I don't know if you saw the roughing the passer call, Johnny. It's not roughing the passer. And, like, one call didn't cost – the referees were garbage. And before I – hold on. Because I'll have people typing, you said to be nice to referees. High school referees. I said be nicer to high school referees. College NFL guys, rip the hell out of it. I don't care. So they weren't very good, but Lions didn't play well. So Lions lose, and the Packers look awful. And now all of a sudden the Bears, like, they're tied for second and really almost tied for first when it comes to the weird tie that the Packers have. Your thoughts on that was one of the craziest Bears games I've ever seen, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. I had to catch up and watch it on the way back from Detroit and all that kind of stuff. They were going to win, then they were going to kill them, then they were going to lose, then they won. Your thoughts on the Bears on a Sunday once again?
Well, again, that's a football game a year ago or 2 years ago. They don't win.
100%.
And that's the difference in the staff that they have. Now, are there it's the NFL league, not for long. We all know that. So there are some severe deficiencies that the Bears have. You can run the football against them. But defensively, and don't blame, Dennis Allen is not the issue here, folks. Dennis Allen is a proven NFL head coach and coordinator. So it's personnel groupings. They have some work to do there, but you saw every bag of Ben Johnson tricks. Can we say that too? Mm-hmm. The Bengals are horrid on the defensive side of the football. They're fun to watch offensively, and we know that. But again, and the Bears ran the ball, and of course I struggle pronouncing his last 176 yards.
Monange.
Thank you, and because I would mess it up, and someone would yell at me. So the other part of it is the tight end has become. And you have a tight end that can now – Cole Kmet can catch, but he's also one of the best blockers in the NFL. So now you have a two-headed giant right there, and Colton Lovelady became a reasonable offensive option. And Caleb Johnson did not do – Caleb Williams did not do – I'm thinking of Ben Johnson – didn't do things to hurt his club. Yeah. To that, they ran the football for a couple hundred yards. There's the key to it all. As you said just a moment ago, Matt, this is what the NFL wants. This is the parity. This is why the schedule. Look at the schedules. It's all a big fix to make sure the Chiefs are 5-4. My goodness, and that was a football game. If Buffalo loses, they're 5-3, and the Chiefs are 5-3. It's exactly what they want. So don't get too upset about your Lions. They're going to be okay. Again, and you say, well, this is offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, Matt. Yeah, they still have the same playbook, Matt. That hasn't gone away. He knows what he's doing. Don't lament the fact that they didn't do something offensively. They just didn't play well. And they let and J.J. McCarthy in Michigan, come on, give me a rest.
Yeah.
I'll never be sold on J.J. McCarthy. So,
no, I get you.
Don't overthink it as a Lions fan. Oh, I'm sure that was a really long bus ride home for you and the family. Worse than the players having to leave. But for the Bears, you're 5-3. You should be 6-2. In some cases, 7-1. If for the real pragmatists in all of this. So enjoy where you are. Know that Monday the NFL as a whole is scheming to make everybody 9-8. That's exactly what they want. And then because that makes that AFC first round really interesting. That makes that NFC second round game really interesting. And it certainly makes for a great AFC NFC championship game for teams that might, some yes, some not no. We want that. We want the two most even, not maybe the best, the most even teams to play for something at stake in the NFL.
Yeah, you look at it too for the Bears. You mentioned running the football. It's amazing, and I like to point out when I'm right. But I told every Bears fan when they got Ben Johnson that I was excited about Caleb Williams and what they can do together. He will run the football, and they fixed the offensive line. It's not perfect, but they fixed it. That's the first things they went and did, and that's the first things they did in Detroit. And it's not fun. It's not exciting to look down at Twitter and be like, "Oh, yay, we signed a guard." I remember drafting.
It is for me.
And I was, oh yeah, absolutely. When the Lions drafted Penei Sewell, I was freaking thrilled. And the kids were like, a tackle? They want the shiny new object. It starts with running the football. When you can insert Monange and have him run the football the way he did. Now, mind you, the Bengals defense is awful, but that doesn't matter. And that's so big picture wise. Are the Bears one of the best? Are they a playoff team? Maybe they'll hang around.
Is 9-8? Is 9-8 a playoff team?
No, yeah, and absolutely. Because you look at it, they have 5, and Johnny, they've won 3 games on the road already. When's the last time the Bears have won? So yes, are they beating bad teams by small margins? Yes, but it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that to be facetious or anything. Take it what it is. It's building a program, a culture. I've told Bears fans this. They have the head coach. Now, do they have the quarterback? Caleb was, the people, I've gotten the tweets and the text messages you're quiet on your Caleb hate. First and foremost, I'm the guy that have sat here and said from the jump, you can't judge a quarterback now. And want to know why, Johnny? Because Jaden Daniels, which was the greatest thing ever, hasn't played well, and now he's out for the season. So it's CJ Stroud is the same way. So you can't get too high or too low with quarterbacks, but we'll have fun. We'll go through the schedule. Giants at home next week. The Bears should be 6-3 on the season. If they're not, shame on them. Then they go to the Vikings. That's a very tough game, but a revenge game. Winnable, probably not favored, but a winnable game. They get Aaron Rodgers coming to town with the Steelers. So Aaron Rodgers, sorry, as Bear fans, he still owns you. Then you go at Philly and then at the Packers. So those are 2 really tough games. The layup with the Browns, Packers again, at the Niners, and then the Lions. So the layups are almost done. They got a couple more layups. That gets them from 5 to 7. Where can you win games when it comes to, Steelers at home, at Philly, Packers at Niners, Lions? Where can you win 2 of those games to get to the postseason? It's very doable and all those kind of things. And you know what? Caleb played good yesterday. The numbers are a little inflated because towards the end when he had to throw it a little bit to get him back in it. And last thing on the Bears, Colston Loveland. I know there's a guy, Tyler Warren, down in Indianapolis they should have drafted. But Loveland is going to be fine. I'm a tight end guy because of the Iowa stuff and everything. Tight ends aren't supposed to be really good as rookies. It's the hardest position to figure out. It's the Brock Bowers and the Warrens and those guys don't usually happen. Usually it takes a year or 2 before a tight end gets rolling, and Colston Loveland now popping a little bit. Obviously, great game yesterday, so he will be fine. Speaking of tight ends, Tucker Kraft probably out for the year with the ACL. The Packers, we won't get into them right now, but they looked yuck. College football. Johnny, when it comes to the Fighting Illini, they win this weekend. Impressive. Luke Altmaier, 5 total touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 rushing. They did what they have to do against a really bad Rutgers team, and now they sit at 6-3. They're bowl eligible. I know we kind of talked about it maybe a little bit last week. The expectations were so high, there's probably a little disappointment. Johnny, they're going to go 9-3. They're going to win 9 games this year. They should be holding a parade for Brett Bielema. They did exactly what you expected Brett Bielema's team to do, didn't they?
Absolutely. And then a great point, Maddie. 9 wins for an Illinois fan. We should be doing cartwheels that they will win 9 football games. Take that. Well, is this Matt Campbell's last run in Ames? And I say that because of them struggling to win football games right now, and all of the prime jobs he's turned down over the last 5 years. Matt, he's still Matt Campbell. He's still a tremendous football coach. His name is going to surface somewhere. And there's still a couple more dominoes to fall. when it comes to major college football coaches, bigger programs. Taking nothing away from Iowa State, but if the SEC calls and backs up the truck, then I still think Matt Campbell thinks about it. The big game is and Illinois fans, back to that. Please be appreciative of what you have. You have a really good football team, and there are a lot of programs that would jump off a bridge for 9-3, and you would have done the same thing for that and have a full Memorial Stadium maybe 2 years ago. Enjoy it, and it's going to stay that way. And again, college football, 8 and 9 victories are phenomenal, Matt. You know what it's like. You see that schedule every day, and we're privy to guys like Coach Ferentz, the most steady, even keel coach maybe in all of football. Though if you spend a little time and ask Pat, KF can get his ire up now and then. We all know that, but that's Iowa football fans. Remember 0-10-1, folks. Enjoy the ride. It's been a wonderful 2-decade ascension up. So to that, Illinois, yes, 9-3, really good bowl game, more revenue for the program, and an enjoyable time for fans. You're getting to go somewhere from December 26th on. Enjoy that. Iowa State fans, be leery if the frustration sets in of the message not getting to his players to kind of break out of this minute. And I hope the tight end is okay. I hope they break out of this doldrum to get to a point to where they have to, that he stays. So there's the worry. And then get back to be appreciative of what happens when you win a college. How hard, again, I'm no expert, but I know what it's like to win I get to see it firsthand or hear about it after they take their shower and come out of the locker room, how hard it is to play at that level and to understand. That's the only expertise I have, is I live vicariously through the young man who calls me dad. So it's not easy. Enjoy it. And then let's talk about the real big game this week. Oregon coming to Iowa City. I know you and I will get the Iowa lover hater. So that's fine. You know how I feel about Coach Ferentz being a quality human. There's the football game this week. Enjoy that.
Kirk Ferentz is 21-3 in November since like 2020 or 2021, something like that. Like, and I know people put them all on there, and it's like a lot of Nebraskas, a lot of Minnesotas, which is fine. Those are rivalry games you got to win, and there's a Penn State there, and all those kind of things.
You still got to win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's a very intriguing matchup that we'll talk a ton about throughout the week right here on Off the Air. And it's a 2:30 kick at Kinnick Stadium. Good reminder that the Hawkeye Tailgate show starts. So here's the beauty part. Big noon Saturday is there from 11 till noon, because they didn't want to. Then the game's at 2:30 because they didn't want to compete with my show. They had to put a little area in there because Fox wanted no part of the Hawkeye Tailgate show. That's the only explanation I could come up with. Oh, what's that?
Is Portnoy coming by?
I don't think he is. I think I read on social media this week that he was going to Mississippi State. This was the weekend. He was automatically going there for something anyway, so I don't think he is. But no.
See, I would never. As much as I hate Mississippi State, and it's a beautiful stadium, beautiful. Starkville's a wonderful, wonderful town. Your fans are 1-800-PAIN, and I can't say it because I'll get in trouble. I told you how well I was treated at Georgia, Maddie, and how well I've been treated at a lot of places. How well, not well. The worst I was ever treated as an opposing player's dad was Mississippi State, and you can take those cowbells and put them where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, no, it's obnoxious. Okay, before I let you go, two quick things, and one is baseball. I know people hate the Dodgers. I understand why they do. I enjoyed Game 7 immensely. I was in Detroit trying to kids were sleeping, trying to stay awake. And I did. Your thoughts on Game 7? Are you a Dodgers hater or
no? I'm the biggest Freddie Freeman fan in all of baseball because of his swing, bat path, how he works. It doesn't have to. Howie's going to be a Hall of Famer and doesn't have to strike out 100. Even though he strikes out, doesn't have to strike out 200 times. He kind of dispels a lot of the myths of bat path and analytics. Also, as much as I hate the Cubs, you got 3 Gold Glovers. Game 7, Toronto should have won the game 37 different times, and that I as much as I enjoy the Dodgers, and I like Dave Roberts. It was strange because you thought the Dodgers escaped with by the skin of their teeth, and they're having a parade today. And Toronto outplayed them at every angle of every game, except they didn't win. And a hanging slider to Miguel Rojas, and that might have been the biggest shock of the evening. The Rojas making the backhanded play with the bases loaded on Varshall's P rocket, and then the getting Alejandro Kirk, who's as good a hitter as there is for his position, into a broken bat double play to end it. Oh my God, we had drama at every. It was a great World Series. I'm not a Dodger hater. Clayton Kershaw, great dude. Freddie Freeman, one of my favorite. He and Nico Horner are my 2 favorite players.
Yeah. No, it was it's a good Game 7, very good Game 7, great Game 7. The best Game 7 of all time was 2016, and we'll just leave it from there. And real quick before I let you go, I had a few people ask on the chat. I had a few people in the chat ask last week for our opinion of, now that the season's over with, where Alleman football goes from here. And I know that's a loaded, probably, we could do a whole segment on that if we wanted to. My quick answer is I don't know if Alleman knows right now exactly what happens next year. Can you answer that question in 30 seconds, or is it still just a bunch of unknowns before? And that includes what high school football will look like, whether it'll be Western Big Six and conferences, or whether it'll be regions and all that kind of stuff as well. I don't think Alleman knows right now. Obviously, they want to play varsity football. That's obviously what they want to do. How it will look, and if they can do it, I don't think is known right now. Your thoughts?
I don't think you answered it perfectly. I don't think they know. They are meeting constantly on how to work it. Here's the issue, and we've talked about this before, Matt. If you find you want to go find a place you can compete every week. And maybe that's not the Western Big Six right now. I don't know. The old standard, the old guard of people, they don't have any idea what it's like numbers wise. You got to compete in the Western. No, it would be nice to compete every week in the Western Big Six, because that's a phenomenal gate and pays a lot of bills. The other part of it is, I don't know, but you're taking 19 varsity sports. If they throw you out of or you can't be part of a conference, you're taking those 19 sports with you. Well, a lot of the smaller conferences, smaller schools, don't field 19 teams. Don't field girls tennis. Don't field girls golf, etc. Just to use it as an example, and they do. And so that was always I don't believe the Lincoln Trail allowed them to join. There are a couple conferences smaller outside of the area that it would be a good fit. That much I can say. But will it happen? No, I don't know that yet. But yes, it is fluid. Again, back off, everybody. Nobody in the world felt worse than people at Alleman that they didn't play, or you and I, the last 3 football games. It killed me, absolutely killed me, because just because of who we are, where we are. So yeah, will there be football? I believe there'll be varsity football again. Where, what, how that looks, I don't know. I really don't know. You have to give them a minute to figure this out. I don't think down the road being in the Western Big Six is conducive to being successful. Bite my head off for that. But 8-man is not, to me, would be the death knell of football.
Yep. No, I agree, and it's not as easy as saying because you mentioned the other sports, and like, yes, what's good for football isn't good for the other sports. Maybe
Absolutely.
at Alleman. So it's a weird thing. Yes, give them a minute to figure it out. And some would say they've had 4 years or 3 years. There were 3 idiots that almost ruined the school. So, and they know who they are. So we have to kind of regroup from that still and figure it out. And it's a changing high school football is changing where it comes to the conferences and regions and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, Alleman would love to see the region thing or the district, whatever you want to repackage it as and do. But it'll, and you know what? I will say this, the other coaches for the most part, I think, realized that Alleman was doing everything they could do at this point to figure it out and to make the most of a bad situation. But anyways, I don't want to bring it back up again and all that kind of stuff. I just had people asking me, and on the chat last week, people were like, hey, what about, and we didn't have time to do it. So I figured I'd get your thoughts, and my thoughts right now is, and I have no inside information. I really don't. I'm not on the phone with the administration at Alleman every day going, what's going on? I don't have any inside information, but I just don't think anybody knows because we don't know what it'll look like. But that's for next year. Great high school football coming up this weekend and a whole bunch more. And we'll be talking about it right here on OTA. Johnny, thank you for spending some of your Monday morning with me. I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, pal. I love you.
All right. That is John Marx every Monday talking Marxy Monday is what I like to call it, talking everything in the world of sports that we could possibly think of. And the scary part is I had to cut that off. We could have probably continued for another hour or so, and we probably will later on in a phone conversation or two. So we got more to get to. You're watching OTA on a Monday. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Monday, November 3rd. Welcome to the start of the week. Thank you for starting your Monday with us. We appreciate it. It's been a busy, fun show so far. We want to thank everyone who's partaken in the chat. It's been lively on a Monday, and that's good. We want to thank everybody for watching on YouTube and on X as well. We want to thank, it's been a good day. Kyle Huesmann previewing the Iowa women. They open tonight. Southern comes to Carver Hawkeye Arena, 6:30. Big Ten Network Plus, I believe, is where you can check out the Iowa women, check out of all of Kyle's coverage of the game. And then, of course, we talked to him about his fearless forecast where he predicts where Iowa will finish and, which players will stand out the most, all that kind of stuff. So check that out at HawkeyeReport.com or scroll back and check it out right here on OTA. We also had Scott Dochterman, almost a half hour of Scott's time, and he's a busy dude this time of year. So we talked about the Illini. We talked about the Oregon-Iowa game coming up. We made fun of Nebraska. That was a lot of fun. Go check out that as well. And then John Marx joining me for his Marxy Monday, talking about everything from my bad trip to Detroit. I should reframe that. It was a great trip to Detroit. Had a blast, all family. They're amazing, all that kind of stuff. But the game itself was that good for us Lions fans. But talked to Bears as well. Talked to Game 7, high school football. We're just getting rolling with the high school football this week. Coming up Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we'll have a lot of high school football. Keep an eye on volleyball as well. Several teams from our viewing area playing in Coralville for volleyball as well. And then good luck to Rock Island, and congratulations to Rock Island, their soccer team winning a sectional championship this past weekend. So they'll play for a super sectional coming up. We'll try to catch up with the Rocks coming up as well. Coming up tomorrow, it'll be an encore edition of the off the air that we did at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Iowa opens basketball wise. First real game for Ben McCullum's crew tomorrow evening. So I have some radio responsibilities I have to attend to up in Iowa City, getting ready for the Hawkeye Tailgate Show coming up this weekend as we get ready for Iowa and Oregon. So I'm going to get that stuff done, kind of play a little catch up. I was thinking about not doing a show today. I'm glad I didn't. But coming back late from Detroit, I figured maybe we just punt on a show today, but it ended up being a pretty good punt. We had a really good time, really good show. But we're going to get the encore edition of, the show that we did at Carver Hawkeye Arena on Men's Basketball Day coming up tomorrow. So you'll hear from Ben McCullum, you'll hear from Bennett Sturtz, you'll hear from all of those guys as they get ready for the season. And then we'll be back with new shows coming up on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And as I mentioned, a ton to get to as we get ready for a big weekend of football coming up as well. Iowa and Oregon is this weekend. It's a 2:30 kick on CBS. As I mentioned, the Hawkeye Tailgate Show will be live at 12:30 from Krause Family Plaza. So if you're roaming around Kinnick Stadium, stop by, say hi, check us out, and get ready for Iowa and Oregon, which should be a really good football game. I think it's Illinois and Maryland this weekend as well. So Illinois can get to 7-3 in the season, and so much more. High school football, all that good stuff. So a lot to get to during the week. Remember, a encore presentation of the men's basketball media day show coming up tomorrow, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll with new shows throughout the week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. Maybe we'll go on the road on Friday. I don't know. I got to figure something out. I like going on the road. It's fun. So we'll figure something out for Friday maybe as well. So again, thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys again coming up on Wednesday. We'll see you then.